So I made a video about a week or so ago about the whole Draymond and Jordan Poole situation, and I decided not to post it because it just seemed like the team was willing to move forward, move on, and let bygones be bygones, even though I completely and utterly disagreed with how the situation was handled. But I'm not trying to cause drama necessarily, and I'm just all about what's best for the Warriors at the end of the day. But I also have a certain morality about how things should happen when there are clearly situations that come about where action needs to be taken. Having said that, Draymond, since the incident, his behavior has just been questionable. He comes out with a documentary, like some kind of movie thing, and it's just broadcasted on TNT, talking about how he's the victim because the video was released, and instead of talking just about remorse, just an apologetic tone for what he did, and the video was just more about how he was a victim in all of it. And then ring night comes, he does not get suspended, and he's playing, and the Warriors win. They looked amazing. Then, in the middle of the game, Draymond is keying with LeBron and just doing goofy, weird things. Like things that he could be doing with Jordan Poole, for example. He's doing with his clutch buddy. And in case you missed it, Andre Iguodala, oh man. It might low-key be one of the most controversial things I've ever seen Andre Iguodala do. But if he's willing to go that far in gesturing what Draymond was doing in that moment in time, that kind of shows you how much Draymond has kind of lost the respect of his peers. And it's just such a bad look. It's not just the fans talking about this anymore. When your own teammates are reacting the way they are on the bench, and when players are saying certain things about you in interviews, you have to consider the possibility that you're the one that's fucking up here. And it's also been reported that in the locker room, the players have been kind of distant towards Draymond. And I just don't feel like, and then Draymond, he just continues to play this victim role, and I'm just really getting fed up with him. I was fed up with him last year, and today, again, I saw him talking in some other platform about how he was victimized for podcasting. And if you know me, I was highly against him podcasting right after playoff games because he wasn't performing up to par. He was bad defensively and offensively. Offensively, he was practically useless half the time. And too many times there were moments where the team looked better without him. And you got to understand something about podcasting. You need information. You need to do your research. You need to watch other games to be able to talk about, let's say, the Celtics versus the Bucks, for example. You have to intently watch that game and study it in order to be able to talk about it on a podcast. It takes time, attention, and focus. And he keeps saying, oh, I have the right to take my time to do my podcast. Okay, fine. Nobody said don't podcast, but he's doing it at the expense of his own play. It showed in the playoffs that he wasn't really focused, and he even admitted himself that he needs to play better. Well, if you need to play better, do everything in your power to keep your focus where it needs to be instead of focusing on other games, other teams, other players as an analyst. It doesn't make any sense. And that's why I said that he should shut down that podcast, at least for the duration of the playoffs. He has an entire career and life ahead of him to do that aspect of his career. Even JJ Redick said when he was doing his podcast that if it was interfering with his play in any kind of way, that he would shut it down and he wouldn't be doing it. And that should be the mentality of any professional player, let alone one of the greatest defensive players of all time, a player who belongs with a dynastic group. You need that certain focus. Even LeBron James, his buddy, he used to shut down all social media so that he can focus on whatever he needs to focus on in that moment. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that. Let me know what you think about this situation down below. Do you think Draymond is within his rights to do all that he's been doing? Or do you feel like he needs to start looking in the mirror and just start questioning some of the things that he's been doing and start taking a little more accountability for what's been going on? Having said that, now I'm going to release how I felt about the whole Poole and Green situation and how the coaching staff and the front office handled that situation. I really didn't like it, and now you get to watch that reaction. So enjoy. So unless you live under a rock, everybody knows what happened between Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. How is that going to affect their dynamics moving forward? And is it going to get in the way of the Warriors going for their 5th championship in the Steph Curry era? I would say no. I would say regardless of what has happened to this point, the Warriors' foundation is just too great. They still have Steph Curry, the best player on the planet. Draymond Green is in his contract year. We know all this. We know the depth that they have, and good things are in store for this upcoming season. That said, I want to get some things off my chest, specifically in regards to what Draymond did and how the Warriors responded as a team. There are some things that I'm very just dissatisfied with, and it's something that obviously I have to get over, and it's not like I'm thinking about this constantly or anything like that, but I know what happened and I know it's not right. So let me get to that real quick. Obviously what Draymond did that's assault. That's a crime. That is absolutely and utterly unacceptable, just childish behavior. It's beyond childish for somebody of his magnitude, his level of experience, the guy who's supposed to be the leader. And what he did is not okay by any stretch of the imagination. Like, there's no making excuses for it, trying to say, oh, this stuff happens, da 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 da. Like, cut it out. What he did is not okay. Period. It's a crime. It's not a scuffle. A scuffle would have been him shoving Jordan Poole back when Jordan initially shoved him. And if I was at the leadership of this team, I probably would have fined Jordan for the shove, because he could have went about that situation in a different way, and he did not. And it was a very aggressive shove. But what Draymond did as a response, as the instigator to start, because he went up to Jordan Poole's face in a very instigating manner, and then to launch a Superman punch on the guy like he doesn't even know who he is, and it's some asshole that's just coming up to him for no good reason and starting shit with him. That's kind of the vibe that you got from the video that was leaked. And I mean, that's not the behavior of a leader. That's not the behavior of a good teammate. That's not the behavior of a mentor, which he's supposed to be to Jordan Poole. He's supposed to be the guy that stops his teammates from doing something like that as the leader and the heartbeat of the team. I don't know when all these things just dissipated and he just became this troublemaker, this guy who's this selfish guy who is all about himself, and he puts himself above others and causes trouble and friction for the team. And it's just kind of crazy how he's been doing this for years and years, and now it's come to this. If I was at the top, I'm probably suspending Draymond for 5 games to let him know that this is where the line is drawn. You can't sucker punch your teammate, cause all this chaos and disturbance to the team that just won a championship. You have to have a set of rules in place where if a player throws a punch and connects, that is an automatic suspension. Now, how many games you get from that depends on the severity of that punch, right? You have scuffles where you're shoving and holding and grabbing. That's a scuffle. When two parties are throwing punches at each other, that's a fight. What Draymond did was straight up assault. That's not a fight. Jordan Poole didn't have an opportunity to defend himself because he didn't think a teammate of his, leader of his, a guy that he probably looks up to, would throw a super fucking man punch in his face and give him a concussion and lay him flat to the ground on the spot. That is a breach of trust. That is a breach of just a code of conduct that you cannot break. People act like that's a normal thing that happens. That is not a normal thing that happens. When's the last time a player got knocked out? We saw Bobby Portis get suspended, even though apparently it was Mirotic who was going after him. And apparently Bobby Portis, according to himself, he was defending himself. But at the end of the day, he broke the jaw of his teammate. So he got suspended for multiple games, right? There's a difference between scuffle, causing trouble, and actually knocking somebody out. Just clock them cold, clean. The only place where that would be allowed is in a ring or in a cage between two people that have agreed to fight against each other. That's not what happened here, right? So that's now on the organization to provide protection. You have to protect your players. And Jordan Poole is a victim here. He got attacked. And for the front office or the coaching staff to say, oh, okay, well, this is between the players, so we're just gonna let you handle it. We're not gonna give out any suspensions unless the players say that he deserves a suspension. Like, the players are always gonna look after and for each other, especially somebody like Steph Curry, who's like the most forgiving person you could ever meet, right? And then you have high character guys like Andre Iguodala and Kevon Looney in there trying to fix things up. They're not gonna be like, oh yeah, let's vote to suspend Draymond. They're not gonna do that. That shouldn't be up to the players. That certainly shouldn't be up to Jordan Poole. Why should he have to deal with the responsibility of whether somebody gets punished or not for hurting him? That should be up to the higher ups. And that's Steve Kerr, that's Bob Myers. And for them to kind of take their hands off of it, like they're, oh, let the kids handle it. Like, that's not the situation. Like, what are we doing here? Where's the leadership? Where is taking a stance and holding your ground and sticking up for your young player who was victimized by somebody who is a veteran, who is supposed to be a leader, but acted like the biggest child on the team? How you just let that slide? How you just say, oh, let the players figure it out? No. You gotta punish him and let him know that this is totally unacceptable, intolerable. And for them to not do that, it's like they heard Draymond and Kevin Durant talk about their situation and how they felt like Steve and Bob messed up that situation by being too involved and actually suspending Draymond for saying words and saying that he crossed the line and all these things. It's not the same situation because words were used in that scenario. In this situation, this is a crime. As Steve Kerr, Mr. Social Justice himself, he speaks on all these things that he feels are unjust, but he has no problems with somebody on his own team committing a crime against one of his players. These guys don't have great leadership. They don't know how to be stern men when they need to be. The way they went about this situation is that of like somebody who's soft, man. Somebody who doesn't know what to do. Somebody who's like doesn't want to get on somebody's bad side or something along these lines. Like, yo, do your job. Protect Jordan Poole and anybody else that gets knocked out in your practice. That's not fucking normal. Having said that, I think Jordan Poole is super mature for how he's handled the situation overall. I don't think he and Draymond will ever be the same again after that. But they can be professionals. They can play basketball together and they can have success together. That's how I feel about that. So more than anything, this is about the morality of it all and just allowing Draymond to get away with so much. It's just foul. Like, oh yeah, you punched somebody, go take a few days off and think about what you did. What the It's not that kind of situation. You literally gave the guy brain damage. You gave him a concussion. Concussion means your lights out, your brain trauma, damaged. Like, it's not the same. And that's not okay, man. That's way overboard. That's way crossing the line. That deserves a punishment. So I wanted to get that off my chest, and how I did. So hopefully we can all just kind of move forward. We'll see what happens for the rest of the season with Draymond, but I'm really getting fed up with his selfish behavior, his lack of ability to control his emotions. He's a grown man. He's not a child. He's been in the league for a long time. He's gone through these things and issues so many times in his career. And at this juncture, to do what he did is just beyond childish. This is just, you need to seek therapy. You need help because you clearly can't help yourself. And just saying sorry is not good enough. The forgiving nature of that locker room does not okay what he did whatsoever. And nobody should be condoning that. This ain't 1995, okay? This is a different time that we're living with. This 30 years ago we're talking about. Oh, 30 years ago players were doing this and that. Like, yeah, well, players were also saying and doing a lot of other shit that would be completely and utterly unacceptable now. So don't use that as a reason to justify what Draymond did. It's not okay.